we're recording.
Okay.
Okay, so New Year's, you got through the holidays. The hardest thing what we've been going over is in actuality, your relationship with your mother.
Right.
And actually, it's been not even about your relationship so much as looking at your mother and how the way she is, which has nothing to do with you, right? Looking at her, perfectionism, her superiority, and how disconnected she is because of that, and how that really conditioned you to always feel inadequate and unworthy and a failure.
Yes.
But recognizing that it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the standards that she held herself to, and when you look at the standards she's holding herself to, she's miserable. Mm-hmm. Right? And she has been. Do you recall a time in her life where she's actually been really connected, loving, and happy with life?
I can remember a time where she seemed that way. I don't know if she's ever been, but like when I was a teenager, she was separated from my father. It kind of gave her a renewed sense of confidence in herself, mm-hmm. I think. And
I could see that.
We were a lot closer at that point in my life. And I still live with her too, so, but.
Yeah, and you probably had a lot more, she might have had a little bit more grace with herself at that time.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times when people, fail at something, like marriage. Now, I use the word failure in a way that's relative to this idea that marriage is like, you're never supposed to get divorced. So,
right,
to me, getting divorced is not failure at all. Staying in a marriage that is toxic, that's failure, right? Because you're living, So when someone comes out of quote unquote failure, defined by the system, it's like they're actually making choices that are best for their mind, their heart, and their soul, and it can be very empowering, and give people a sense of freedom and autonomy, and it can be very transformational. And that might have been what you saw. At some point it went away, maybe because she thought it was her ex-husband that was the problem.
Yeah.
There was it was that marriage that was the problem. So when she got out of it, there was an initial sense of freedom and elation, and then it just never probably got better. I don't know. But
that sounds like it would fit.
Yeah, because she's still not looking inside of herself or within her lack of grace. Anyways, so looking at that really just gives you some understanding that your inner sense of badness that you've carried for a long time has nothing to do with you. What does it have to do with?
Her.
Her belief systems. It's not even her.
Yeah, it's right. How she was trained to think.
Yeah, we kind of looked at that when I had you think about how your death would impact her. Like your sense of badness doesn't come from her so much as it is a projection of the badness in the belief systems that she's suppressing. I don't even know if I said that right. The badness doesn't come from her. It comes from the belief systems that came from her parents. We talked about the religious indoctrination. She is really very religious and brought up to be extremely religious. Am I right?
Yes.
Like radical type religiosity?
Well, radical in what people, I guess, sort of consider a normal. Like, I don't think it's radical compared to what I imagine you went through.
Well, I could see that. Let me explain that when I say that, what I mean. Perfectionistic, idealistic, right and wrong like clear black and white divisions of what right is and what wrong is.
Yes.
That to me is radical.
Yes.
Okay, so some people would look at the religion I was raised in and go, it's not radical at all. But when you look at it from the extreme, unforgiving nature of the rules, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Even though they talk about grace, forgiveness, you know, in terms of Christianity, that Jesus died for your sins, they still approach your sins as if it is all or nothing.
Oh, yeah, like fire and brimstone.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you say this, but your actions are this.
Right.
But there's always Jesus, but you don't get it.
Jesus. It was very difficult for me to understand it because it was like, well, Jesus will forgive you for things. And I'm like, well, even if I killed somebody, I'd be forgiven. Oh, yes. But then if I dated when I was separated, I was a horrible monster. Like,
yeah.
So
So
it didn't get like, oh, but what if I ask for forgiveness for dating when I'm separate? Well, if you do it again, then you can't be forgiven for that.
Totally. Right. And it's like, if you were to bring it into the religious terms, well, just Jesus forgive me for dating this person? They'd have to go, well, I guess so, yes, but I don't.
Yeah, so it was very confusing for me, and it didn't really make sense. So it just is.
You never internalized it so much, did you?
I just couldn't go along like a good little sheep, and maybe that's why I felt my mom resented me sometimes too, because like I wanted to think for myself and not just go along with.
Yeah, well, of course that would make sense if she's not comfortable thinking for herself. I think we touched on this too. She's always been brainwashed. She's always been told what to do.
Yeah.
So many people come to me and want me to tell them what to do. Because that's what they've been trained to do.
Right. Follow the rules.
There's a program. The program is better than your intrinsic program. So you need to abandon your natural state of being for an unnatural state of being from a constructed idea of what you're supposed to be like. So abandon your truth and let's internalize something that we're going to program into you that should be better than that. But at the same time, we're going to praise a God that created your internal truth, but yet reject what was created. This is common in when we demonize and moralize human nature, like sex, for example. That's how we have babies. That's how I was brought here. My parents had sex, people. Yes, they did. I have 9 siblings. Oh my gosh, they had sex.
So 10 times. I swear my mother only had sex twice with me and my brother.
Because it's so demonized as morally wrong unless you're married.
And that's what my father will make us believe too.
Well, then the weirdest thing about it is when you're in this type of religiosity that demonizes and actually instructs that you repress it. Is that you're all of a sudden get married and you're supposed to not have the negative affiliation and attachment to it. So they actually, to some degree, affect your biology in terms of sexual drive. You know, if sex is dirty and animalistic and something that is sinful and unforgivable to God until you're married, right, then again, it's just like, and you're taught that while you're forming, you're developing, and you're creating a sense of identity socially. So it would make sense why people would reject sexuality altogether and neutralize themselves. Men becoming more feminized, women becoming more masculinized, all to repress any sense of sexuality. But at the same time, you're also given the message that you're supposed to be sexually attractive. So make sure that you're thin, your waist is small, you have big busts, get a boob job, you know, or make sure you get filler and your eyelashes need to be longer and your hair has to be this way and you have to look sexualized like a pinup doll, right? A pinup picture. But yet sex is something that is private and sex is something that is to be not discussed. Does that make sense? So what I'm talking about is that generation that is still alive today Your parents, my parents, and their parents. So it's the World War II generation and their children, the baby boomers. And you can see how generationally it's really, we were impacted because we were fear-mongered. You know, I was in the X generation, so I'm 40. Went through high school in the early 1990s. You know, we were also kind of in a weird position. At least my culture was, because my parents were very religious during the 80s and 70s. To repress it and to be afraid of it. And so when your humanness is wired to want to have sex, to want to connect to someone sexually, to want to be loved that way, we feel bad about it. We feel like there's something wrong with us. And we moralize ourselves as bad or lacking, or that there's something wrong with us. So when you have that identity with the ideal that is programmed, and you're living in your reality that was wired from God as a form of creation, right, and evolution, which one's right? Your programming or your reality within you? The concept of God or the godness that we are existing in? Which one should we be shaming? Which one needs to be let go of, you know?
The concepts are what you're taught.
I agree.
Yeah, because that was another thing that was very confusing, exactly what you said. You can't have sex before you get married, but the minute you're married, you're supposed to be available to your husband whenever he decides.
Yeah, and all the way up. And don't forget the concept that you aren't supposed to have sex before marriage, but you need to look sexy.
Right.
So,
and you don't know. And I do think that my ability to realize my sex drive, I think that is screwed up from that learning as a kid. Because I've just learned to, like, oh well, if I have sex, great. If I don't, oh well, who cares?
Yeah.
I can turn it off or on when I need to. And that's not good with being married either. You know, like if you just you never really even think about it unless the moment arises. Well, the husband gets tired of being the initiator too.
Totally. Yeah. And there is a difference between how men are wired and women are wired, and how we become attracted and stimulated sexually is unique in general. But I absolutely see this commonly with people who were raised in that type of radical removal from their humanness, to be detached and to separate themselves from the body, because the body is such a source of shame and fear and control from those systems. You know, what you wear, how you wear your makeup, how you present yourself, posture. Again, the concept of what is sexually approvable, but yet at the same time not associating with sexuality, but yet attaching to the concept of sexuality in vision. How, you know, it absolutely affected me. Absolutely affected me.
Well, and then, too, it was like, well, yes, you have to look like a pretty little girl, but God forbid, don't cross that line and look slutty.
Right? And then if you do have sex, you are a dirty piece of gum. Who's going to want to chew you now? That is the worst. So it's like this all or nothing radicalism. And specifically to your animal nature. So we could look at the diet industry and say they are playing that role of religiosity relative to the sin of eating and food. And how we internalize that. How people that have these eating disorders and dysfunction with their relationship with food, how much of it is so wrapped and intertwined with shame. with who you are, as if, the inherent desire to feel secure and safe with food, and that impulsiveness, the impulsivity towards eating, how that is so shamed and stigmatized as you're lazy, slothful, have no self-control, yet not understanding what creates that impulsivity is someone that is living in shame and a desperate need to feel better about it. You can look at the impulsivity to shop, the impulsivity to clean. Think of all of the ways that people try to fill that negative void.
Why couldn't I have had a cleaning compulsion instead?
Oh my God, that's even worse. I mean, honestly, they all suck. Right? Yeah, no kidding. Because it's no better. I mean, imagine if you are a slave to your house. A slave to making sure that something is clean. Imagine the load of work that would take, how you live with a magnifying glass in terms of your perception of cleanliness. And so what you think is clean or what you think is dirty is actually quite clean. So imagine the torturous cleaning you'd have to do. And then how...
And those people too are freaked out by germs just from the common...
because they're magnifying what they think is dirty. And think of the slavery. Sure, think of the slavery and work it takes for them to feel safe and pure.
Yeah.
They can't go out. They can't. They have anxiety if they do. A lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
I've had clients that have that too.
I'm sure.
I have.
I have a friend who's like that, and she is kind of very neurotic about things.
I had a client that would be on her hands and knees as she left the house, mopping up where she was stepping. And then she would leave the rag at the door. And she was miserable. It was horrible. It was sad. And she didn't know how to stop. And at the same time, her kitchen and compartmentalizing the food and making sure that her food was pure. I mean, this is that orthorexic concept of purity, which is, if you look at what's underneath it, why would they have that humongous need for cleanliness and purity in their food and their way of being?
Because they feel dirty.
Dirty. Yes. See, now you're getting it. Underneath it is severe sense of dirtiness. And then the shame of it. So the question you have to go into with someone like that is being dirty really that bad? Compare the dirtiness and the badness of dirtiness to the insanity and the slavery and the suffering of everything you have to do to clean up. Because you either get your dirtiness or you get the insanity of cleaning up. And it is radicalized extremism. So obviously there is a balance point where I clean my house, but I don't clean it because I'm dirty inside and I'm trying to feel better about myself. I clean it because I enjoy a cleaner house.
Right. And that's how I am too. It bugs me when it starts getting messy.
Yeah. So there's a balance point between what you can accept in your messiness and what it's worth to clean it up. And it doesn't create, it doesn't create badness within you. It's just, you're indifferent around it to a certain point, and then it changes the energy of the house. So you could say in that respect, you're balanced, healthy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. That's not an issue for me.
So that's where we want your body image stuff. Just like that. Mm-hmm. We want it to be just like that. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you have a higher expectation for thinnerness than you do for cleanliness. Mm-hmm. Right? You're not as lenient with thinnerness as you are cleanliness.
Right.
That's the difference. So when you're more strict around it has to be this clean, and you're coming from a place where you think thinness is a definition of your value as a person, you don't necessarily value yourself based on the way you clean your house.
Right.
So that's a big, huge part of it. And I think that actually projects into how strict you are with it. So if your cleanliness of your house was your pride, notice what would change with your lenience around it.
There wouldn't be any lenience.
You would, yeah, that lenience would go away. Right? When we identify by these external objects, like a car, for example, we identify our value based on the value of the car we're driving, and it can change based on, well, what values it? What culture do you come from? Are you driving a souped up truck? Are you driving a Mercedes? Are you driving a Rolls Royce? Where in the country are you? So how it is perceived, if it is perceived as something beneficial, if we attach who we are to that object, then our goal would be to seek benefit with the object. So seeking benefit isn't the problem. It's just what you're attaching it to. I seek benefit, but I'm benefiting within myself. Like, I don't want to attach to anything. I don't want to attach to anybody's opinion ever again. And I don't want to attach to a program's opinion, right? So a program tells me what's good. Oh, I want good, so I go get good from that program. My goal is to attach from what is. So I've taken that desire or energy from myself as a human seeking goodness, and I attach it to the truth of the heart that I have. That is the only difference.
Well, that's yours too.
Yeah, and even then we could argue it's not mine. It's consciousness, it's humanness, and we all have it. So is it mine? What you're saying is it's independent of someone else's opinion now.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Your heart or your soul is
independent.
Yours, and it's okay to believe in that or fall back on it.
I'm the only one that can approve of it. In the end, we can say someone else is going to give you an opinion about your heart and soul. How do they come to that opinion?
By what glasses they look through.
Yeah, and who's the only person who's actually experienced the truth from within you?
Me.
You. So even if someone gives you like, oh, you're such a great person, that can't be influential either, because how does anybody who says you're a great person really know what's within you? What consciousness you're experiencing? They can't. So when they compliment you, they're actually complimenting you from their sense of that in themselves. Am I confusing you?
No. It's making perfect sense.
Yeah, and so you could look at this relationship with your mother and say, well, of course, her opinion has mattered to me. Strongly mattered.
Well, and that comes back too with the religion. Honor your father and your mother. Like, no matter what crazy stuff your parents tell you, you're supposed to.
Well, and you innocently do it, whether the scriptures say that or not.
Right.
We're wired that way. So it's kind of like, okay. But you know what? When I hear that, what I hear is forgive your father and mother. Mm-hmm. Forgive them. Because they are doing the best they can with what they're aware of, and you're clearly on the other side of it. It's unfair to judge them when all you experience is the consequences of their parenting. If they knew the consequences of their parenting, they'd be ahead of the game and change it and do it differently. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of unfair to say they sucked and to treat them as if they knew what they were doing ahead of time. I have so many clients that have a hard time hearing that because they really enjoy demonizing their parents. They don't want to forgive them. They enjoy.
See, it torments me to say it out loud that they had made mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to say it, and I like to believe that they did the best they did. But
well, you have to.
But in the meantime, that's what I'm just saying about. Even if they were doing something that was a little backwards, I was still taught to just trust it and believe and do whatever they told me to do.
And that they know more, that they know better.
Right. And so I don't even like to think or say they sucked.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Well, they did the best they could. So that's the truth of it is they didn't suck. They did the best they could. And you could say in hindsight, what they did actually was probably best for them.
Right.
Wasn't necessarily
the consequences.
Yeah, of how it would impact you, because they're not inside your consciousness to know how to parent you. They're inside their own consciousness, and most parents are parenting based on what their parents didn't do or did do, and you're evolving how you parent your children. At least that's what we all should be doing. And to me, it's no disrespect to my mom and my dad so much as I honor the fact that they love me so much that they would want me to do what's best for me once I'm aware of what that is. You know, once you're aware of what that is, it would be a terrible thing to continue to do something that they did, that they wanted you to do for them when it hurts you. Like, I would never want my kids to, if I have a child that needs to diet, I want them to do that. If that's what they need to do, I want them to know that I love them, even if they believe in thin supremacy. Right? Even if my kids decided to go back into the religion that is in my family history. I mean, a couple decades of religion in my family lineage. I'm pioneer stock. My family came across with the pioneers. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if that's what they want to do, I want them to know what's right for them, and that's what I want them to do. Even if it's not right for me, and I found for me that it was not necessarily helpful when it came to living in reality. I could see how it would be helpful 50 years ago in that culture, or 100 years ago in that culture, but in our current culture, it's catastrophic. If you're going to live in reality. If you live in isolation, it's great. Again, see the relativity in this? You're the only one that knows the relativity for you. So your mother might have an opinion, a very, very strong, one-sided, tiny opinion that is extremely strong. And you have to come to the awareness that she's not aware of what's right for everybody. She only knows what's right for her, and clearly she's miserable in her rightness. When I say she's miserable, am I wrong?
No.
Yeah, because I know you've talked about it. She's miserable. Yep. She's lonely. She's disconnected. Yep. She has no friends. She never really has, because she's offensive in her opinionatedness. Anyways, and it's sad for her, but not enough to let go of her opinions. And there's no reason for you to remain hidden inside of her opinions, knowing full well that if she was aware, she would never do it again. It did not turn out the way it was supposed to. She didn't live a superior life.
Yeah, and I think she does wish she had the magic key to make her happy, but she just knows that she doesn't know.
She's not willing. Yeah, she's not willing to let go of what she knows, right? She'd have to let go of her knowingness. Because she is like kind of a self-righteous, isn't she?
Yeah.
In her knowingness.
Yeah, and
don't we all know someone like that? You know what I mean? Self-righteous in their knowingness. Sometimes I wonder if I come across that way.
Well, that's what I worry too, because I see a lot of her in me, and I wonder a lot of times if people don't, not just say you're like your mother, that people that don't even know my mother, like if these aren't things that they would say are my poor qualities. she thinks she's right. She can be critical. She knows what, like, it sounds just like my mother.
Yeah, well, and you know what? That's how I was raised as well. So if I come across that way, that doesn't matter to me. Here's what I've come to be aware of so much is that my integrity, I'm always in line. I always try to get a sense of what my real truthful integrity is. What is the truth of my integrity? Am I trying to put someone down? Am I trying to put them below me? Or am I really trying to help them see this, clearly? So I always go into my integrity. How someone interprets me is really none of my business, but I do know with what I say and what I do, I really, really don't mean harm to anybody. And I know that's how my parents felt about the religion they wanted us to be raised in and to identify with and to have our whole entire family continue to pass down. Each generation needed to hold on to that same religious identity. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a belief system that is presented to pass down generation from generation to generation, and it did not work for me, and I would not pass it down. And so for my mother, you could see how if it for her provided a sense of pride, and it also provided her with a sense of safety, separation from reality, superiority. It gave her a lot of ego. And was she aware of that? Of course not. To her, it was connection to God. Wouldn't she want that for her own children?
Oh, yeah. And I guess, too, they realize that it's not perfect, but they're willing to accept it because maybe they think it's 97% correct.
Of course. Yeah. That there is always man's sins within it, for sure. For sure, it's the narcissism that they bring to it that I think is where the destruction is. So it's not the religion so much as the narcissism that it is built around. It took my mother having brain cancer to wake up. And I remember her saying, "Oh my God, Robin, I was so off. How was I so off?" She never let go of the identity, the religious identity, but she absolutely let go of the extremism and radicalism in it. But
you say that's common for people when they're dying as well.
Totally.
Right?
Because reality hits. They're like, oh. And she talked about how haughty she was in it. It was very healing for her, I think, to witness that. But it's sad that she had to have a terminal cancer for her to be humbled to it.
Can I ask a question? And you don't have to answer if you don't choose to. Did your father have more than one wife?
No. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I was going to say, well, then I could majorly see why she was so messed up with.
No.
Or thinking if this is what she was taught and she was living it, and so it wasn't to that extreme then.
No,
okay.
Not at all.
But just radical within her chosen religion.
Correct.
As my mother was, even though society sort of, I guess, because, then you always hear the holy rollers, born again Christian people. Like, some people act like it's some cult or something, but
yeah.
I would think Methodist is kind of like a generic, yeah.
It depends on which radical religion you're looking at from. From whatever radicalized position, Methodist is radically wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if you're Catholic, maybe say that. I don't know.
No, and some people think Catholicism is radical. And it's just like, it's everybody who has all those opinions, right?
Well, right. If it's not the one you were brought up in, then the rest of them seem radical.
Exactly. To me, it's not the religion so much as it is the narcissism that people bring to it. And when you look at it from survival oriented, from the view of survival mechanisms, it's someone using religion to survive. That's what changes it. Again, if someone is seeking purity and sanctity to that degree, what is their natural state of being? Sinful and dirty. That's a sign of their state of consciousness, which is pretty low. That's a sign of that's the lower side of survival, which is apathy, shame, vengefulness, guilt, anger, victimization, and fear. Those lower states of survival are the ones where you're in hiding. And so a lot of people who have that lower state of survival consciousness hide behind religion. And it's like a weapon they have or a tool they have to get a sense of surviving on the upper side of survival, which is full of pride, glamorizing it, desire. That's the working survival. Whereas the lower survival is the hiding, the shame, the need penance, constantly running from your sins. Because you are a failure. You are a failure. Versus running from being a failure. That's the upper side of survival. Am I confusing you?
Yeah.
Okay. I ask that all the time because I never know if what I'm saying makes any sense at all.
No, the only time I get confused is if I get stuck on one thing and I start thinking about that and then I don't really tune into the rest of what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
But no, I followed along.
Okay, good. Sometimes I don't understand what I'm saying. I swear, I'm like, did I understand? What did I just say? Did that make sense to me?
But some people too that I have met use religion as an excuse for bad behavior because of what you're saying about, oh, well, Jesus will forgive me.
Yeah, well,
I can do this. Okay, well, I'm forgiven.
Yeah, well, that's like dieting. That's like saying right now I'm gonna indulge. I'm going to overeat because I know a diet will fix this. So when you look at people who are in that state of being with other rules of moral rules, I remember being that way when I felt like I had failed. I was like, I might as well enjoy myself in reality right now because I cannot go back to that anytime soon. It's too much. It's choking me. It's literally suffocating my existence. So while I'm sitting in a piece of shit, I might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what you're seeing.
Oh, yeah, and that's exactly how I was with the dieting.
Yeah.
With the extremes. Either I was doing so great on my diet, and like I would start a diet like, okay, this is the last time I'm ever eating a brownie again in my life.
Do you hear how funny that is when you say it?
I'm serious, but you don't know how many times I've said it. That's the sick part.
You know, you wish someone was there to go, sure, okay.
Yeah, right.
In those moments.
Ever having it again.
Don't you wish someone could just slap you in the face and go, get your shit together? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No.
Yeah, right.
You're going to have another brownie. Just, what are you thinking?
Right.
Because it's again, it's like, because you're an animal. It's like telling a dog he's never, ever, ever going to sniff another dog's butt again. Sure. You know? It's kind of funny to even expect a dog to not do that. It's like, really? There's something they get out of that. Should they feel bad that their nose is in another dog's asshole?
Nope.
I know. Notice how we're so accepting of dogs doing weird stuff like lick their own junk. I know. It's just funny that we are supposed to be supreme beings that don't have any animal in us. And it's just like, why criminalize the animal aspect of our being? It's wired into the body. So the bodies need to go pee and poop and, to have sex and to eat, to seek food that is pleasurable. Why is that so demonized? This is the downside of morality. You end up having to shame your animalness and repress it and hide it to just prove that you're a qualified human. Just to say that I'm a good person because I don't eat cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear how
or,
weird?
I'm better than you because you eat cookies and I don't.
Exactly. Well, yes, that's the pride side of it. I'm better than you. That is the supremacy.
Look how disciplined I am, and you're such a hog, and you're bound through the brownie box at work.
Okay, so that person you're describing, which I know you have felt within yourself, but you have seen it in other people. That's the person that you are afraid will judge you. Mm-hmm. Think about that. I'm afraid of the asshole's opinion.
Maybe I'm the asshole.
Well, of course you are.
Afraid of.
Well, and isn't that the truth? When you hear it, you're like, but I'm the one who's criticizing myself that way. So I am the asshole. But is it you or is it the diet industry that created that sense?
Yeah,
where did you get that cruelty? Where did it come from?
The pressure outside of myself to perform.
It's the attitude of dieting that you've been conditioned by.
Well, it's funny because this time of year, all the Weight Watchers commercials and the diet challenges going on, and it's like, oh God, don't listen, don't get sucked into it's. Well, I feel like I have been, but sure, it piqued my curiosity. The new program at Weight Watchers. Oh, what is it? I have to look it up, but I wasn't like, I will never join Weight Watchers ever again.
Hey, you know what? Maybe you should, just to find out what happens.
Yeah, I looked at it just because I was curious. Well, what makes it so wonderful after 50 years of Weight Watchers? And they always do that this time of year. The new improved program. Well, the selected program is so great.
I want you to go back to what I just said.
What did you say? I should do Weight Watchers?
Yeah, go do it. Tell me how that feels right off the bat.
I don't want to do it.
Right? Well, there's that, but there's a reason why you feel that way.
Well, if you said there was a different latest thing. See, Weight Watchers, I just felt like they're just out to get your money, and I have a little sting from them from before. But if you said
someone else's program,
right?
Okay, right. You would do it. Okay, so let's imagine. Let's go there.
As a new diet program that's so wonderful.
Totally. Let's go there. I think let's go there in your mind. Let's approach it like you're going to do it. You've done this so many times, so there's no reason why we can't mentally do this.
Sure.
So imagine that. Like right now, you're going to go on a 30-day cleanse program, and it's going to be this and that, and they're going to do measurements. It's going to be controlled and organized, and you're going to measure your food, and it's going to be delicious and fresh and healthy and clean and organized and all that jazz.
Okay.
Tell me how that feels.
Well, it's exciting because, this is my new break. This is it. This is the one that's going to cure me this time.
Okay, that right there. You just hit the nail on the head. The fantasy.
Yeah, because I've lived it a billion times.
Yeah, it's just a means to the end. What you just described is the end that you're chasing. It's going to get me there. This is a new tool. It's not even about the diet. It's not about the cleanse. It's about what you think it's going to get for you.
Right, and it doesn't even matter. You could say I'm going to be eating rock salt for the next 30 days.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what I'm going to be doing.
We're going to wire your teeth shut, and all you can have is fluid.
Right. Okay, great. Let's do it.
Yeah, because you're looking at the end, not the means.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're super fixated on the fantasy end result, not looking at the misery.
Right.
And how unrealistic it is. Right?
That's true.
It's like you
eliminate right boost weight out of anybody that ever did this diet.
Exactly. You eliminate the dates that you're going to go on with your husband, the meetings with friends, the fact that people are going to have you over, that there's going to be the Girl Scout cookies. You eliminated the beer you're going to have when you go to the beach. You're going to eliminate. You just completely omitted that from reality. So the fantasy of that end result is as if reality doesn't exist and there is no humanness that will keep you from reaching it. It's like this idea that we're going to put you in a cage and it's going to be fabulous. So the high you get, the excitement that you feel, is that you think you're going to get something you want from it.
Right.
So the first thing is, does what you want actually exist?
It exists, but it's not something that's going to remain permanent.
Okay, pause for a second. Go back to does it exist? Really think about that. Because it's not just, because what you're looking at, let's just say, is thinnerness. You're thinner. Does thinnerness exist? Yes. It does. Okay. Yes, it does. But that's not what gives you that sense of excitement. It's the symbolism in what you think you're going to get out of it emotionally. That's exciting.
That's true.
Okay.
Life will be perfect when I'm thinner.
Correct. So let's go back to that. That's what I'm talking about. Does that actually exist?
No.
Exactly. So you're getting excited about a lie. Something that does not exist. Right? So even if it is attached to thinnerness, and you could be thin, and you've attached it to thinness, what you didn't include in your fantasy is when you get there, you have to keep it. You have to stay thin. So what happens to that freedom? When you to stay thin, you cannot stop the slavery that it took to get there. Attached to that fantasy, the slavery that it takes to get there, because you have to keep on doing that just to keep the thinness. And on top of that, I want you to add paranoia. Because once you get thinner and you believe you have achieved that thin ideal, the magic weight and size of freedom, you have to hold on to it. So it comes with defensiveness. And paranoia is a symptom of that. Worried about food, worried about what's in food, worried about how much you ate, feeling bad that you might regain the weight. Your micromanagement of your weight and your size gets worse as you get thinner. You understand all that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then if someone says, you do decide you're going to eat one little cookie, and someone at work, oh, are you supposed to be eating that? Like if somebody catches you, then you have the shame of, well,
I'm not perfect. I'm a sinner. Oh my God, they found out I'm a sinner.
Right. But no, I can still keep it off. I only ate one cookie, and then you're just, oh my God.
And then you binge the rest of the day. Then you binge the rest of that day. Because you really fucked it up, and you better be perfect tomorrow, because you have to prove to that person that you are a certain way. So that's what I meant by paranoia and defensiveness. It's work. Because you have something that you think is valuable. It's not really valuable. In reality, you're miserable. It's an illusion of value. Again, is it really valuable if it requires you live in misery to hold on to it and keep it? To be disconnected, to be paranoid, you live in mental illness just to be thin.
No, it's a horrible place to be.
So let's go back to that question of, does your fantasy in reality, does it exist? Because you've attached this freedom to thinness.
It's not. free, that's for sure.
Well, you have to see that. You could be thin. That is realistic. It is within reach for sure. It's within reach with every body.
Right, but it's a huge price to pay to be there.
With this reasoning. With the attached freedom to it, you're screwed. That's the problem, is you've attached betterment to it. So with betterment attached to thinnerness, you are inherently requiring then work to keep it because it's better than fatter. You want me to repeat that?
Yes.
You've attached betterment to thinness. That means as you get thinner, that betterment, in order to hold on to it and to keep it, you have to work as hard, if not harder, because there's betterment in it.
So how do you keep from feeling that the scale, and I don't mean the scale, stepping on the scale, that range of scale, if I'm better when I'm thin, I'm worse when I'm fat. How do you keep from, because I'm allowing myself to be fatter if I need to be.
Yeah, but the problem with it is if you still think thinner is better, you do feel bad about it, right?
Yeah, because I feel like I've given up so much of feeling that way, but I'm still afraid of just feeling like I threw in the towel. Oh, well, I'll just have to be fat.
I understand that. A lot of people think, well, am I quitting? Is this quitting, Robin?
I don't want to feel like I'm quitting. I just don't want my whole life to be wrapped around what goes into my mouth day in and day out.
Which is what has been happening with your goal of being thinner.
Right. Monitoring, watching, counting.
Oh, it's fatiguing. You're in fatigue. You're kind of to the point where you can't do it much longer because it is horrible.
But I'm starting to feel like I was feeling good about the things I was eating. Now I'm looking at it like, God, have I eaten anything healthy since I started? Like, because I was in such a mood of, well, I can just do whatever I want because, and I'm just listening to my body. Well, my body has to feel like it needs spinach once in a while.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between a mental construction of what's healthy and a mental construction of what's not healthy. And what is in reality what the body needs and wants. Okay. What I commonly see when I first start working with people as we give them freedom from having to fix their body is it is incredible relaxation. The impulsivity goes away. The binging goes away. Right? But often
the binging's gone.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And that in and of itself is like amazing, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's not hard work at all. In fact, it takes no work in any way, does it?
Right. There's just no relaxing that grip on it and the control releases it.
Yeah. So part of this is, so we release you from having to lose weight, but when someone does it in their mind temporarily, what I see happen is they give themselves freedom to eat the food that they've demonized and denied themselves. And it is really common for people to come out of that eating the food that they demonize as bad. And that's all they eat.
Right.
Don't you agree? That's absolutely understandable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you can look at that and go, well, of course I did that.
And I'm still doing that.
Okay. What that tells me, because we've been working together for a while. Right?
Since summertime, right?
Yeah. So it's over half a year. What that tells me, and I already know this, and you already know this, but maybe this is part where you're not seeing the connection yet, but this might be the conversation you start to see this connection because you haven't permanently accepted the body without conditions. You're kind of sitting in that pause and you're eating that way, believing that at some point I will fix my weight. And you might have in your mind committed to doing the HCG protocol. It might not be now, but at some point you're thinking, I will stop. I'm going to give myself freedom now. And that could be from years of resentment for depriving. How many years did you deprive yourself?
Since I was a teenager.
So what, 40 years?
Yeah.
Probably. 40 years. So some of this is compensating for feeling deprived. The other part of this is that so there could be that. There could also be this idea that at some point we are going to fix my weight. So that's when I talk about you've put this on pause. And what our goal is that you eject it completely, not pause. Not pause the weight loss, it's eject it from existence. Right? What that does is it takes the energy and power out of what we call bad food. Because if you're never, ever, ever, ever going to diet again, what does that eliminate? Well, it not only eliminates the restricted quantities in foods, but it eliminates the idea of bad and good food. It's like if there's no diet, then who's to tell you what's bad and what's good?
Right, the anxiety of eating's gone.
Totally. There is no, I shouldn't be eating this. This is bad food. This is fattening. There is none of that. And I guarantee you that is what you still have. That, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. The other thing is the victim position, the resentment has to be surrendered. So you have to forgive everything. You have to forgive the fact that you really dedicated yourself to being thinner, dedicated your identity, dedicated your life with food to it for decades. You have to really forgive yourself for doing that because you have compassion for why you would seek refuge in a thinner body. And no wonder you restricted food. So should you resent that when you did it intentionally? I'm not sure if this is really sinking in for you. You might need to re-listen to this one, this session. Here's the good news, Julie. This is so salvageable. Like you're in a space right here. This is actually an easy space to move out of or to release from. I think having this conversation is important for you though, because there is a process to this, and you've clearly made humongous amounts of progress, right? But you're stuck in a spot that this isn't supposed to be stuck here. Many people get stuck right here. Many. In fact, I predictably assume people aren't going to actually permanently change the way they think. It is a temporary pause in the way they think. And so once they get this freedom, then there is a point at which there is a downside to being in pause. There's a plus side, there's a benefit to the relief, but the downside is in pause, you still hold on to these underlying beliefs that do create anxiety with food and a badness. You're still holding on to some of that religiosity with food and dieting. So you clearly relieved yourself from having to fix your body right now, but you still hold on to the belief patterns of dieting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I do. I agree. I have made so much progress, but I feel like I'm on a teetering point right now where I'm starting to question whether I'm going to relapse or not.
Well, you know what?
And that scares me.
Okay, well, I was just about to say, you know what? If you relapse, it's okay. It's clearly you can come out of that, but I don't know if you'll ever fully relapse again.
I hope not.
Well, you think about it for a second. Don't hope. Go into your awareness. I know you always play that like you're a great politician, right? I hope not. No, go into what it is. Go into binging. Tell me if you'll ever binge like that again.
See, I want to say I hope not, but it's like it does make me. I sometimes I can't believe I did it because even now, if I just overeat a little bit sometimes and I think, oh, I'm starting to feel sick to my stomach, and then I think, how did I do it?
I know. Okay, see, so answer my question. Do you think you'll ever binge again? Go back to what that binge felt like and tell me if you will ever do that again.
I don't want to ever do that again.
I know you don't.
I don't trust myself to say I don't.
Okay, well, let me help you get some clarity. Will you ever deprive food with such extremism again? To the point where if you eat something just partially off, you will feel like you are a piece of shit failure. Will you ever do that again?
Same thing. I know what I want to say, but I don't. I think because it was such a part of my life for so long, I can't trust to say that I would never fall back into that black hole again.
Yeah, okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that you're just not confident in where you're at right now, and that's why you're holding back. You're just not.
Okay, just shaky, like.
You're not quite confident, but I know I am going to tell you on this side of it, I'm positive you'll never go back because you'd have to have brain damage to go back.
and I do. That's my biggest fear, that I would be tempted to go back, and I think that's what scares me. Like, I don't want to be back there ever again.
I think that it is time for you to go on a diet.
Oh God!
I know, and I say that with my heart and soul. Let me shut this up. Quiet. I am not on a computer right now. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so the reason why I say that is just to get your bearings with yourself.
Uh-huh.
So all it would be is a feeler. You don't have to do this. See, I'm tempting you with it because I want to get a sense of where you're at. Number one, you are working with me, so it's not like you're alone.
I know.
Okay, so what's the likelihood you're going to fully relapse working with me?
Very slim.
Correct. Because even if you go back into that insanity, you clearly were in that insanity, if not worse, when we started, and it was not a big deal for me to help you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that you're capable of coming out of it. You came out of it, right? With no awareness, with absolutely nothing going for you, and you came out of it, okay? The reason why I would put you in this position is so we can get some movement. So often when people initially get that initial space of recovery because they put things on pause, there's an upside, which is an awareness that you aren't diseased, an awareness that it isn't about the food. There's so much you become aware of between this connection around your body image and your relationship with food and how they're so connected, right? Then people get to a place, especially if they've put it on pause, to where they are eating too much. They're still over consuming. They're eating bad food for whatever reason. And there is that sense of, what am I doing? I think it is something that can be positive to go back into dieting, because what it will solidify and maybe make more clear to you, if it isn't clear enough already, that connection between the idea of being thinner and happiness and the reality of the misery of living tortured in deprivation with food.
Yeah, because even just you mentioning it just gave me major anxiety again.
I'm not saying you have to.
I know.
But if you're holding on to the hope of being thinner than you are, you're kind of stuck right now. Because how can you move forward in this process if you're still holding on to the hope of being thinner?
Mm-hmm. So how is the diet going to make me appreciate?
Well, it might give you another cycle of suffering. Trust me, it's not going to be as bad. It isn't as you were when you came to me, because you've learned how to give yourself lenience and grace, but and compassion, and you're never going to be so radical in how hard you are on yourself again. I'm almost positive that you need to feel that. So I think going into a diet might help you recognize your recovery. It's like giving you your drug to see how you respond to it.
Yeah, but wouldn't a drug addict be afraid that if they were given the permission to try it, to see that they're just going to fail again somehow?
Yes, that's natural. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you feeling that way. That's why I'm suggesting it. I think your feelings are coming from just you not giving yourself enough credit.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. That's been the story of my life.
Well,
the confidence part,
Yeah, I think that it would be important for you to develop confidence. Like, here's the difference between your old way of approaching it and this way of approaching it is, I'm okay if you struggle. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that there's anything wrong, or I don't think it's even harmful. I see so much benefit in it. You would need to have that same viewpoint, or at least the grace. Okay, so if I'm your guide and I'm sitting here going, okay, let's go out and try this, I expect you to suffer. So that's why I'm telling you to do it. But what will happen with that experiment is you will come back with more awareness of why you don't ever want to do it again. So you're kind of sitting on the fence, still thinking that that fantasy exists. And so I'm saying, well, why don't you go find out? Let's go run after it again. Tell me how it feels. So when you come back, you're going to be like, that fantasy does not exist, Robin. I'm going to go, I know.
I feel like I don't even need to chase, because I know I've been through that cycle so many times. I can tell you how it's going to feel. I know how it's going to
feel. See, this is to me, we're making progress just in this conversation, because you're having to think about it now. Mm-hmm. Like, do I really want to do that? I already know where it goes. So why are you holding on to a fantasy that you are never going to be willing to chase after again? You're not going to chase after it ever again. So why hold on to it? It doesn't exist, especially if you're not willing to suffer for it. Does that make sense? Are you willing to suffer for that goal? No. Is that goal worthy of suffering for?
No.
So
I want both. I want full, and I don't want to suffer.
Okay, so the problem is, because you still want that goal, you are still suffering. So that's maybe something to look at. The wanting of that is why I still feel this way. You want it. I've had a lot of clients get stuck right here, and they sit here for months. There's a benefit to suffering, I swear to God. I don't think it's worth quitting. I mean, quitting this process. You know what I mean? It's like the process should continue. A lot of people feel like, I'm suffering now, I'll never recover, and they quit. That's kind of like because their level of consciousness is so low.
I'm afraid. That's what I'm afraid of, is that I will quit, and I don't want to ever quit. That's my fear. For some stupid reason.
Oh, that you're gonna feel hopeless again.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the good news is you have a relative perspective around how bad it was and how much better it is. To know that you're in a way better situation now than you were when we started. Your relationship with food is better. Your relationship with yourself should be healing and developing. I think you and I, we need to make a game plan. I think that's what we need to do. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but yes, I want to hear it.
Well, one strategy, and there's a lot, is for you to go back into dieting. Like, go on a protocol. Let's do it, right? Of which your first response is what?
It's like a mixed response, like, oh God, here we go again. But yay, I'll get skinny again.
Yeah. Yes. I'll get skinny. Keep in mind, this get skinny, you need to include with that excitement the suffering. You cannot divide those two.
Oh, I know. And there was suffering to get skinny on that protocol diet.
I know. So I need you to pair them together. So the problem when you think about the excitement part of it is because you're thinking about the skinniness and the symbolism of it without any suffering.
Yeah, and there was plenty of suffering.
So now pair that skinniness with suffering and tell me how valuable that feels.
Doesn't feel valuable.
Not at all. It's disgusting. It's like, who would do that? I wouldn't suggest that to my worst enemies. Gross. No, not going to do it. Not worth it. Why would someone fantasize about something so horrific? Someone's at the door.
It's probably the UPS guy.
I want you to contemplate on that. When you think about, when you go to that skinnier you are not attaching the suffering to that fantasy.
But I don't want fatness to be my reward either. That's
fatness. What do you mean?
I'm just so afraid if I attach suffering to skinniness, I'm going to attach pleasure to fatness. And
well, hold on a second. I understand what you just said. I totally get what you just said. But the suffering is in the means to the skinniness. It's actually in the wanting of the skinniness, not the skinniness itself. It's not the skinniness we're attaching that to. It's the suffering from the means to the end and the wanting of thinness. I want you to go into that feeling of wanting it. Tell me how that feels.
It's just like, it's
not good.
No, it's hard because
I know. Wanting. It makes your skin crawl. It makes you feel that the body you're currently in is wrong.
Yes.
So the wanting of that thinness is full of suffering. Right. It's not the thinness in any way. Right. It's not the fatness in any way. It's the symbolism attached to thinness, the negative consequential symbolism of fatness, right? Because you wouldn't have a negative feeling of fatness if you didn't have a positive feeling of thinness. Mm-hmm. And it's the wanting of it. It feels so disconnected. And it's almost as if you are lifeless in that wanting with what you have. It takes you out of your current reality and you're separated from it. Because your current reality feels bad in comparison to what you're wanting. So go back to that, what you said around, but I don't want to feel lovingness with fatness. That's not what I'm suggesting, is it? Have I ever said that?
No, never. Mm-mm. But I don't want my brain to twist it around and make it into that.
Well, and that's what everybody's brain does. When you hold on to the wanting of thinness, the illusion is that to escape that, I have to want fatness. Well, of course not.
Right.
Our goal is that you don't give a shit about any of it. It's indifference all around. That your body image has nothing to do with your happiness. Happiness is not a physical thing. It's not. It's spiritual. It's consciousness. It's aware consciousness is what it is. Because we could look at unhappiness and say that's consciousness too. It's just lacking awareness. Gaining awareness is where happiness is. Because it gives you freedom to exist in reality without having to leave it. You know, again, going into wanting thinness, it makes you feel like you need to abandon. There's abandonment in it. Do you feel that at all?
Oh yeah, it just makes you feel like you're not good enough.
Yes. Okay. So when I say that problem is the wanting, you gotta pair that misery with all of it. Like that thinness requires you want it, which inherently requires misery. So we have to surrender to even wanting it. Now, when we look at what you want, you only want what you think you actually can have. For example, do I want $500 million?
Sure.
Well, yeah, but notice how I'm not serious. No, I don't, because it would be a waste of my energy. It's not realistic. Nowhere close to reality. Even $1 million. $500,000. It's like, why want that? It's not in reach.
It's not going to happen, so why worry about it?
Correct. Why even put exhaust any effort into it? Plus, if I want that, what is it that I'm chasing after? What do I lack that would need $500,000? That would need $1 million? What am I lacking to where that's what I need? Would I reject that money? Hell no. I could do a lot with it, right? But I don't need it. I'm indifferent around $500,000. I'm indifferent around it. My current state of being doesn't include needing any of it. All right, this is going long.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries. This is a great conversation. I think we need to follow up and make a plan.